Hello, welcome back. So we are back again with the new lecture. The title of this lecture is Maths for Physics. Now if you remember, in my very first lecture I told you that mathematics is a language of physics. Whatever you want to explain, understand or even analyze, the only language that you can use is mathematics. Now most of you would be studying mathematics as well as physics together, but there are a lot of people who would have chosen only biology and their maths wouldn't be there. Moreover, there are some concepts of mathematics which will be used in physics in 11th standard, but those concepts may be taught in the 12th standard. So for all those people who are a little bit lagging in understanding the mathematical concept of physics, this lecture is very useful. For explaining you the maths, what I will be using is the chapter of motion in a straight line, because I have given you some instances where mathematics can be used and will be used. So by making the use of the ideas of motion in a straight line, the physical quantities like velocity, acceleration, etc., we are going to study a little bit of mathematics, and then slowly we will come back to our regular chapter. So let us begin. The first thing that you should understand while you are studying physics, the first concept you need is the concept of graph. Okay, now maybe in our 8th standard, 9th standard, we have studied some graphs. Okay, we have studied x-axis, y-axis, we know the coordinates. So let us just freshen up how graphs look like, how coordinate systems look like, and how do we interfere. So take an example of a Cartesian coordinate system. So see, this is x-axis, this is y-axis. Okay, so this we can call it as a positive x-axis, this is a positive y-axis. Okay, so in the Cartesian coordinate system, what we have is a positive x-axis and a positive y-axis. Secondly, we can also have a negative x-axis and a negative y-axis. Okay, so let us again freshen up. We have a positive x-axis, a negative x-axis, a positive y-axis, a negative y-axis. Okay, we also studied quadrants. So this is the first quadrant. So in first quadrant, let us make a table. Okay, so this is x and this is y, and this is the number of quadrants. So in the first quadrant, x is positive, y is positive. In the second quadrant, what do we have? We have x is negative, y is positive. In the third quadrant, we have negative x, negative y. Okay, this is second quadrant, this is third quadrant. And in the fourth quadrant, we have positive x and negative y. Okay, I made a mistake, this is positive. So what do we have? In the first quadrant, x is positive, y is positive. In the second quadrant, x is negative, y is positive. In the third, both are negative. And in fourth, x is positive, the y is negative. So this is very briefly okay, so that I have told you. Now I have taught you what is x-axis, y-axis, what is the first quadrant, second quadrant. So these concepts will be very much useful to us while we learn physics. Okay, now let us learn to interfere the graph. So for time being, let us just concentrate on positive x and positive y-axis only. Okay, so in this particular chapter, we will have, this is y-axis, This is positive x-axis, positive y-axis. So how do we plot? Say this is 0. So 0x, 0y, origin. Okay. 0x, 0y. Okay. Say this is 1, 2, 3, 4 and so on and so forth. Here it is 1, 2, 3, 4 and so on. Okay. Now somebody tells you, you are supposed to plot a point P which is at 1, 2. So 1 is the x-axis point, 2 is the y-axis point. So 1, 2. So what do? We make a dotted line from 2 on y-axis and 1 on x-axis, and this point becomes my point P. Okay. Again, if there is a point Q which is 3, 3. So take this and take this. This point is Q. And now if I draw a straight line joining P and Q, what I have done? I have plotted a line on this Cartesian coordinate system joining 2 points whose coordinates are 1, 2 for P and 3 for Q. Okay, so this is very basic, fundamental, which you all know, and you might feel like, why is ma'am teaching this? But slowly and steadily we will go to the next phase. Okay, so now again this Cartesian coordinate system, what we will do now is go back to our motion in a straight line. So if you remember, in our last lecture we had this type of graph where on x-axis, okay, we had time t which is measured in seconds, and on y-axis we had distance x which is measured in meter. So this is my x-axis, this is my y-axis. Okay, so what happens? My y-axis tells me where my object is, and my x-axis, where I have time, it will tell me when that object is. Two answers in one graph. This will give me the answer of when, and this will give me the answer of where. Okay, so this is position, this is time. Clear? So now let me give you an example. So time is say 5 seconds, 10 seconds, 15 seconds, 20 seconds, and distance is say 2 meter, 4 meter, 6 meters, 8 meter, 9 meter. Okay, so sorry, I should write here 10 meter. Okay, multiples of 2. So now at time t equals to 0, say the position is x, which is also at 0. That means this, my object is at the position 0, 0. So it is at the origin of the Cartesian coordinate system. Now when time becomes 5 seconds, the position is now 2 meter. So my object is here. Okay. Now when the time becomes 10, this moves ahead and is at say 4 meter. First it was at 2 meter, then 4 meter, then again at 6 meter, and so on and so forth it will go ahead. So this is the trajectory. Trajectory means it is the path on which my object will travel. So what I have to do, I have to look at the graph. Somebody will ask me that at 10 seconds where is the object? So I just have to go to the graph and and see that at 10 seconds my object is at 4 meters. So this kind of motion, this is a motion because it is changing the position and the position is increasing. So what will happen? Your velocity is positive. Okay. Now what is the definition of velocity? It is distance travelled upon time taken. Okay. So what is the distance travelled from, say example, 0 to 15? So it has gone to 6 meter. So 6 meter, and what is the time taken? 15 seconds. So 6 by 15, whatever answer you get, that is the velocity. And you are very sure that distance travelled upon time taken is my velocity. So this type of velocity is a positive velocity. So the motion is taking place where there is a positive velocity. Now take a look at this. For example, at time t equals to 0, my object is placed here. Okay, at time t equals to 0, my object is at 10 meter. At time t equals to 5 seconds, okay, my object is at 8 meter. At time t equals to 10 seconds, my object is, say, somewhere between 6 and 4, some 5 meter. Okay, and at time t equals to, say, 15 seconds, my object is here. So the distance is 0. Now look at this line. What is this line showing? It is showing that at time t equals to 0, at time t equals to 0, what was the position of this thing? It was at 10 meter. And at time t equals to 15 seconds, the distance has come down to 0. So the velocity is reducing. So we can say here in this case we have a negative velocity. Velocity is negative. Okay. So in the first case, in the blue line, the velocity is increasing. Okay. That means the distance from the origin is increasing with the increase in time. Now in the second case, the black line, the distance from the origin, that is the initial position, it is decreasing with the increasing time. So we have a negative velocity. Now, very interesting point, and I am sure you will all be very happy and you will appreciate that you yourself has understood this. For example, at time t equals to 0, the position is here like it was. At time t equals to 5 seconds, the position is again at 10 meter. At 10 seconds, the position is again at 10 meter. At 15, the position is the same. That means with the increase in x-axis, there is no change in the y-axis. That means this object is not moving. The distance is not covered. The distance is not changed. There is no displacement. So we say that this displacement is 0. And so this object is stationary. That means no motion. Is this clear? I know the concept is very simple, but we have to understand this graph so nicely that any time you get such kind of graph, may the x-axis can be something else, the y-axis can be something else, but from the graph you will be able to tell me what kind of a motion it is. So let us revise again. This is a stationary motion. I should not use the word stationary motion, no motion. The object is at rest. Okay. In this case, it was a positive velocity. In this case, it was a negative velocity, and we have rest. So three phenomena. The velocity is increasing, the velocity is decreasing, and the object is at rest. Is it clear? Okay. Now using this graph, we will try to understand another term that we had learned, which was acceleration. So let me again draw a Cartesian coordinate system. On x-axis I have time in second, but on y-axis, instead of displacement, instead of distance, now what I will have is velocity. Velocity in meter per second. Okay. So what happens now? Again 0, 0. So this is 5, 10, 15, 20. Again 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, so on and so forth. Now in this case, let us see what happens. For example, at time t equals to 5 seconds, the velocity of the object is 5 meter per second. At 10, it is not 10. At 10 second, say the velocity is somewhere between 5 and 10, somewhere here, 8. Okay. Now again, sorry, we can write it like this. At 10, the velocity is here. Okay. Now at 15 second, the velocity is 15 meter per second. At 20, the velocity is 25. Okay. Now if you join this line, it is going like this. You can see it is not a straight line. That means the velocity is changing at every point. Okay. That means if there is a change in velocity, change is denoted by delta. It is nothing but acceleration. Is that clear? We have always told that if there is a change in distance with respect to change in time, what we get is that the velocity. If there is a change in velocity with respect to time, what we get is acceleration. So this is the graph of acceleration. You can also have some graph like this, where the velocity is changing and is again constant, and suddenly it is coming to rest. So this is also an accelerated motion. From here to here the velocity remains constant. So del V by del T, delta V by delta T is 0. Okay. Now from where do we get this delta V by delta T? That is also something that we have to learn from the graph as a part of our mathematics exercise. Okay. So just imagine this type of velocity graph. Okay. So what we have to find out is acceleration. Say it is A1. So acceleration A1, how do we find? It is delta V by delta T. So take a look at this point. What is the change in velocity? 0. What is the change in time? Some 5 seconds or 3 seconds or something, whatever. So the acceleration is 0. Okay. In this case, what is the change in velocity? Some from 28 minus 10 or 18 or something like that. So let us imagine it is x. Okay. And what is the change in this time? If you look at this point, it is very, very small. Okay. So you might write 0, but it is not 0. Okay. There comes one beautiful word, which is limit delta t tends to 0. So this is one concept of differential calculus that I will be teaching you just after I finish this graph. So for time being, believe me that this is not 0, it is a non-zero value. Because if it is a 0 value, what happens? Your acceleration becomes infinite. Okay, and practically we do not have any such concept where the acceleration is infinite. Okay, so this A2 is something we will study after we complete this graph. Okay, so we are little bit disappointed why this thing is not 0. I'll tell you why, but let us go back to this phase. In this much part you have a delta V, okay, from say 25 to 10, okay, so it is 25 minus 10, and delta T is from 5 to 15, so it is 15 minus 5, so it is 15 by 10, okay, so delta V by delta T, so your acceleration will be 1.5 meter per second square. These are the numbers that you should not believe right now, okay, because these are all arbitrary numbers that I have taken. The practical numbers are very, very different, which we will study when we study the numericals. But this is just a concept. How are we getting acceleration from the graph? Is this much clear to you? Okay. Now this disappointing factor I will teach you, which is nothing but differential calculus. Now what is differential calculus and how do we make a use of it? So now what we are going to study is what happens when time t is very, very small. So let us take this example. Say on x-axis we have time in seconds, and on y-axis we have displacement or distance in meter. Okay, so in that example what we saw that if the distance is varying something like this with time, okay, so we were saying that to find out velocity, what we do is we take the rate of change of distance with the rate of change with the change in time, right? That means delta x by delta t. So for particularly this case, say it is A and B. For the distance A and B, we are calculating the velocity. So how do we calculate the velocity? We take the difference in the distance, that is a displacement, and difference in time. But what about this case? Say from this point to this point. Okay, say it is point P and Q. For the displacement, that is delta x, the P and Q is significant. Okay, we have a big amount of change is done in by line segment PQ. Okay, so there is a big amount of change that is happening. But what about the change in time? The change in time is very, 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 very small. So this delta t is so small that it cannot be measured or it cannot be felt. Now how does this happen? For example, if you are riding at full speed, okay, say around 80 meter per second your speed is going, and suddenly you need to put a brake. So when you apply a brake such sudden, what happens? You are going very nicely and you are coming back. You are coming to stop position. So the velocity which was say 80 meter per second or 50 meter per second, or you can say in terms of your bike speed, if it is 80 kilometer per hour, if you are going at that speed and suddenly you apply the brake, the time between this 80 kilometer per hour and 0 kilometer per hour is very, very small. So in this case, what do? We are taking the use of one mathematical operation which is known as limit. Okay. Now this is a mathematical operation that we will be applying on our physics phenomena. So how do we do it? So we know that in normal case V will be equal to del x by del t. Okay. So this is what? This is average velocity. Average velocity. Correct? So we can put in this bracket, or somebody even puts a bar on it. Whatever it is, a notion for average velocity. But when the limit, this is a mathematical operator you can see, okay. So when the limit delta t tends to 0. Tends to 0 means it is trying to be 0. It is very small, but it is not exactly 0. So when limit delta t tends to 0, at that time del x by del t will be converted into what? It will be converted into dx by dt. Okay. How do I write this? It is d by dt of some function x. Okay. Now this function x is one variable. This t is one other variable. Now in this case, particularly in this case, this x is dependent upon t. So t is an independent variable while x is a dependent variable. So this delta x by delta t is now converted into d by dt of x, where x is a function of t. Now look at this symbol, x and bracket t. What does it mean? Whenever I am writing that x into bracket t, which means x is dependent upon t. Okay, so t is independent variable, x is a dependent variable which is dependent upon t, and this operation d by dt is one operation, like we have addition, subtraction, division, multiplication. Okay, that way only. This is also one operator which is known as differentiator. Okay, so now we are slowly stepping into the language of physics, which is mathematics. So now we will be learning some basic concepts of differential integral. Why I am giving you this explanation? Because you will understand the importance of differentiation in terms of physics. Okay, because mathematics is one language, nicely they have derived, and physics is using that as a language and giving us the answer to that. Is that clear to you? Okay. So now what we will be doing is we will be understanding the maths of differentiation. This was the physics of differentiation. What will this differentiation tell us? That in very small t, okay, in a very small change in t, what is the change in x? That explanation we will be getting by using this operator. Now how are we going to use this operator is the question of maths. So let me give you some basics of differential integral. So now we know that d by dx of some function. This is the symbol of differentiation. Okay. Right now our function can be x square, it can be a into x cube, it can be x by 2, okay, or it can be 1 by x. So these are all different functions, okay, that can be put into this bracket. Okay, and this is an operator which will be operated on a function. Like for example, I say 2 and 3 is equal to 5. So what can you put in this bracket? You will be putting addition. Correct. Now, if here it is 6, so what can you put here? You have to put multiplication as an operator. So these are the two functions on which an operator is being applied. So here also the differential operator will be applied. So now what we can do is we will write d by dx of x square. Let us take this as an example. So now we all know that if there is an operator, there is a formula. Like if you are asked to say 1 plus 1, you are always going to write 2. How we are going to write 2? Because we have calculated this is 1, this is another 1, 1 plus 1 becomes 2. You know this is the operator and this is how it functions. Similarly, there is one way of operating this. So d by dx of x square is nothing but 2x. Okay, now how this has come I will tell you. But before that, let us look at this operator, this function. But I will not use this a right now. I will just use this d by dx of x cube. Okay, so now what will happen? It will be 3x square. Now how did this come? Okay, so there is one formula for this which you have to remember nicely. It is d by dx of x raised to n will always be equal to n x raised to n minus 1. So in this case, what is our n? It is 2. So this n will always come in front. So it is 2 and n minus 1. So it is 2 x raised to 2 minus 1, which is nothing but 2x. Clear? In case of x cube, it is 3x square. So this 3 has come here. So it is 3x 3 minus 1, which is 3x square. So this is a formula that you have to always remember whenever you are doing any kind of differentiation. It is maths that will be used in doing our problems in physics. Okay. Now let us take one more example. If I am asked to do d by dx of ax cube, where a is constant. Okay. Now I have told you that here x is the variable. X has to be differentiated with respect to x. Correct? So what happens? A is constant. So constant will remain as it is, because you cannot differentiate a constant. Because for differentiation it means you have to make some changes. Okay. But a constant will never change its value. So the constant remains as it is. And x cube, so differentiate, it will be d by dx of x cube, which will be nothing but 3ax square. Is this clear to us? Very good. Now taking one more example. For example, I want to do d by dx of u into v. Remember, u and v are the variables dependent upon x. Okay, both are variables, so there is nothing constant. So how do we differentiate this kind of thing? First of all, take u as a constant. Okay, and do the differentiation of v. But v is a function of x. Okay, this is a function of x. This is also a function of x. Okay, plus now keep v constant and do the differentiation of d of v. Sorry, of u. This is also a function of x. Now when I say v and u are a function of x, what do I mean? I mean that u can be written as, say, 3x plus 2 and v can be written as 5x minus 1. Okay, so whatever is the value of u can be written in terms of x. Okay, now for example, if u and v are a function of t, then you cannot differentiate it with respect to x. Okay, because you are able to do the differentiation of only those components, those functions which are dependent upon it. So if somebody tells you that d by dx of t, what will it be? There will not be any differentiation. you cannot do the differentiation. Correct? So always remember that the differentiation is to be done by the same variable, and if it is not done by the same variable, in that case the differentiation will not exist. Is that much clear to us? Okay. Now the second point after differentiation is integration. Okay, we have integration. So this is the symbol of integration, x dx. So we are going to integrate x dx from say 0 to 5. Now this is one mathematical way. Now let us go into the physics part of it. What does it say? It is saying that if there is one function is going like this, okay, and I don't know how it is going everywhere, and I don't have any opportunity to find out what is happening at this place, or I don't know what is happening at this place, but I know that whatever happens is going to happen same everywhere. So what I am doing is I am taking one small part, okay, and in this small part that I am calling it as dx. Okay, so what I am doing is this small x, that is small dx, I am just doing the summation of little dx's. Okay, so this is the sign of summation. So integration of dx. Okay, integration of dx is nothing but x. Okay, so how is it? I will tell you. So let us take this example. Say I want to do the summation, the integration of x square dx. So from 0 to 5. So this will be x cube by 3 from 0 to 5. Now how it is coming? In differentiation we remember we said that d by dx of x raised to n was n x raised to n minus 1. Now integration of x raised to n dx is equal to x raised to n plus 1 upon n plus 1. Is this much clear? So the formula for integration is x raised to n plus 1 upon n plus 1. So the x square that we had in this, it became x plus 1. So it is x 2 plus 1 upon 2 plus 1. So this is nothing but x raised to 3 upon 3. Now this is the limit of integration. So how do we put the limit? What we have to do is, it is upper limit. This is upper limit. This is the lower limit. Okay. So the upper limit is x raised to 3 by 3. Now for this your x is equal to 5. Okay, in the upper limit. So this becomes 5 cube minus lower limit. So it is x, what is x? X is equal to 0. So what we will write? 0 cube upon 3. So this is upper limit minus lower limit. So this way we will be able to solve all our physical problem using the integration sign. So the take home message for all this calculus, differential calculus and mathematical integral calculus is this two. These are the two formula that you have to remember. Whenever you are going to study the change in something, we will be doing differentiation. And when we want to sum up some quantities, like we know a small part of it and we want to integrate it over the whole period, over the whole time, length, whatever, in that case this formula will be very much useful to us. Is this much clear? We are just, for this lecture we have learned what is differentiation, what is integration, we have studied how to interpret the graphs. Okay, in the next lecture I will tell you some more details about the physical quantities, that is vector and scalar quantities, addition of vector, multiplication of vector, dot product, cross product, etc. that we will come to you in the next lecture. But for this lecture, we have studied three important things: graph theory, differential calculus and integral calculation. That's all for today. Thank you very much.